Hello, and thank you for joining our webinar today. So today we're going to be talking to you about migrating insurance companies to SAS Global Hosting. Before we get into the core of the presentation, I'll go through the agenda of what we're going to cover today and also introduce myself. So I'm Ben Dorothy, I'm Senior Delivery Manager at Analytium, and I've been involved with some projects which have migrated insurance companies to SAS Global Hosting and Viya. I'm joined by Iksana, who's a SAS consultant at Analytium, who I've also worked with on similar projects and the same projects, and Pavel, also a SAS consultant and data scientist at Analytium, who we've all worked together on the same projects. And actually, the case study we're going to take you through today is from a project we have worked on together. So in terms of the agenda, we're going to take you through a bit of an introduction to Analytium and my SAS team, who we are and what we do. We'll take you through the case study in terms of the approach and plan that we would typically take in a migration project. And then go through the steps of migration, from the preparation part of that through executing the migration itself. And we're going to focus a bit then on testing and how we approach that, because testing is quite an important phase of the projects, especially in insurance and in financial services. And then we'll look at some of the lessons we learned in the project so far. And there'll also be some time at the end for Q&A. So, we're moving on then. Introduction to Analytium and my SAS team. So, Analytium, we're a UK-based company, or founded in the UK in 2016. We're a data analytics consultancy. So, we primarily focus on bringing data analytics capabilities to all businesses of all sizes. And we also partner with various technology vendors, other consultancies, and not only offer consultancy in data analytics and certain technologies, but we also offer support in procuring, licensing and products, installation and support of those products as well. Mentioned that we're a data analytics consultancy, so our focus is primarily driven on helping companies get value from their data through implementing and leveraging analytics tools and processes that can help companies achieve their strategic objectives. The industries we operate in, I've just put the primary industries we're operating in at the moment, so insurance and financial services, and we also support small, medium-sized businesses across various sectors, including charity organisations and manufacturing, for example. Our business model is focused on consultancy expertise, and the offerings make up about 35% of our business. So that's in the licensing and software space. We work, the primary markets we're working in is UK and Belgium and Sweden, but we also operate across the European Union. Our current staff sort of headcount at the moment, so we're around 32 full-time FTEs, which is primarily made up of permanent resource, but we do also employ contract and freelance resource, which is based across UK and Europe. Next slide, please. In terms of our service and offerings, I mentioned that because we are data focused, we support the full life cycle of analytics, from helping companies define and plan their strategies. So starting with data strategies and also technology roadmaps and analytics roadmaps, through to helping build and execute those strategies in the form of implementing data strategies, implementing the technology and solutions that support those strategies and deliver the value that clients are looking for. We also look to help customers optimize their current analytics capabilities and processes. So we perform have a number of different offerings in this space, so we can work with clients to modernize their data platforms, carry out health checks and recommendations for improving performance, and also help support their own internal strategies where possible. And finally, we also offer full maintenance and support and hosting of analytics platforms as well. So we can not only install, configure your analytics platforms, we can also run and maintain them for you, and also provide run services for your MI BI teams as well. And across all of that activity, we offer obviously change management and service management across that. This slide is just showing some of our partners and customers. So we've got technology partners that we work with. Some of the one of the regional partners we have in Europe, and some of the customers that we're currently working with as well. So focusing more now on our partnership with SAS Institute. So we're a silver partner and reseller with SAS, and we've been a partner for over 5 years. We have a number of consultants with approved access to SAS Global Hosting, who have both the experience of working with SAS Global Hosting and familiarity with the processes and procedures involved with migrating clients to that service as well. Of our consultants, we've got around 20 consultants that are certified across various SAS products. So we offer support across a wide range of the SAS products and software. We are the active sponsor of the SAS UK and Ireland user group as well. So we host sessions every month, which have primarily been online, but we'll be introducing some face-to-face ones soon, so look out for those. As part of being a partner with SAS, we obviously get access to a lot of material offered to partners. So we are involved with helping SAS develop some of their products and strategies. We take part in some of the trials, and I'll mention one of those later. We've migrated organizations already to SAS Viya in the cloud, some directly with clients and others with SAS Global Hosting. And we're also a partner with Microsoft, so the majority of the work we do with SAS Cloud is with Microsoft Azure. As part of being the partner as well, we also have access to multiple learning modules to ensure that our consultants are current with the developments in SAS software and applying the best practices in working with SAS. So before we get into the case study itself, in terms of our experience of working with Viya, so we've worked on projects migrating customers to SAS Viya 3.5 and Viya 4. We've worked with some major financial services and insurance companies on migrating to SAS Viya, and that's across Europe. We are the chosen partner for support and hosting UK universities on SAS Viya, and we also host SAS Viya for free public access webinars as well for various SAS user groups. We were part of the early adopters programs for SAS Analytics Pro, so we had early sight of that product and provide feedback into its ongoing development and the version that you can now see as a consumer. And we obviously take part in multiple product demonstrations with clients, and you'll find on our YouTube channel some of those. In regards to ongoing in progress work we have at the moment, we're working with a major retailer for migration projects, and working with European governments for on-prem installations as well. So we're going to move into the case study itself now. So this example is taken from a recent project that has finished, where we've helped migrate a leading insurance company from within Europe, from SAS 9 to SAS Viya, and that was done in partnership with SAS Global Hosting. Now, in terms of the project scope and success criteria for this particular client, background, the client was facing some considerable costs with running their current on-prem platform, and also with a new cloud strategy initiative developing within their organization. The particular business area within insurance wanted to ensure that they were keeping abreast of that progress of the cloud strategy and modernizing their capabilities as well along the same roadmap. So in terms of what needed to be done there, we knew there was going to be compatibility changes needed to migrate both data and code to make it and modify it so that it could be used on a new platform. It needed to be migrated and tested. There were some security improvements sought in this process in the migration as well. So there were some security risks against the existing platform that needed to be remediated, and we need to ensure minimal business impact whilst we were doing this project. As you know, like an insurance finance division would have to continue doing their day job. They'll continue with their daily, weekly, and monthly reporting and regulatory reporting. So we needed to minimize the impact of that so that they could continue to do that on their current platform whilst we migrated them to their new platform. With the migration, it was obviously we would be modernizing their platform from the ground up, really giving them a platform to develop their reporting capabilities on into the future. We would be delivering that improved security model and integration needed to support the cloud strategy, and offering improvements in performance across all of their business areas as well. The extra benefits which we would be looking to realise would be some improvements to some of their controls, so especially around their route to live for analytics delivery around some of the core processes such as IFRS and Solvency II, improving their overall technical controls landscape, and helping develop the engineering teams and data teams working with that platform to improve their processes, and address some of the long-term support issues that they've experienced previously. Next slide, please. So 5 reasons why to choose SAS Hosted Cloud. So I've mentioned previously that we've migrated some clients to their own cloud environments where they've run and support that themselves. In this example, we are migrating to a SAS Hosted Cloud. So this comes with a number of benefits. Obviously, hosting your platform with SAS gives you the confidence that you are working with the experts in the software. They've got experience of thousands of projects and clients who they support, and have the SME knowledge available there as well. So you don't need to invest in that into your developing your own capability. It provides you with one single provider to engage with for both your SaaS software and infrastructure. It's an optimized infrastructure that SAS has dedicated teams supporting for multiple clients. So performance is a key metric for them, and it ensures that you get the best possible performance from that platform. It enables you to get up and running quickly as well in terms of value. So this is a tried and tested process, and you're obviously working with the experts in this field. And You're also keeping up to date with the latest versions of SAS software, so you can keep your teams focused on leveraging that capability and innovating more quickly as well, and with the reduced cost of upgrading in the future. And finally, high availability. So there's guaranteed SLAs around performance and service, and improvements in resiliency and uptime for your platform as well. So this slide will take us through a high-level view of the migration approach. So like many projects, we're starting in the scope phase, so where we would work with the client to confirm the migration plan and the target architecture. So that's collaborative between ourselves and SAS and the client. We would produce then a architectural design and security design, and share that with the client and take that through the relevant design governance forums within the client company, as well as our own processes and SAS processes. And at this point as well, we developed the test strategy, which is an important step for releasing a new product into an insurance company. The next phase is then preparation. So this is where we install and configure our SAS migration tools. So these are the tools we use to understand the existing environment and plan the approach to moving all of your components into the new environment and any modifications that need to be made in that process. So we'll cover a bit more on this later. Once the preparation is done, we move into migration. So this is where we migrate data and code into the target platform. We also implement the security model at this phase as well, ready to be tested. Now testing, during the testing phase, we perform obviously testing on our tools which prepare and migrate the components. So this is activity that we provide as part of our service, and then we tailor the test strategy to the needs of the client. So I've mentioned that within the insurance company we've worked with, we were working with the finance and actuarial teams. So there are monthly reporting processes and regulatory reporting processes that needed to be thoroughly tested and reconciled before a sign-off to move to production would be granted. And like much regulation, there are certain rules and policies that need to be adhered to. So, for example, evidencing at least a 2-month parallel run between your old and new environments is a key requirement that we had to meet. So that involved a phase of regression testing and parallel run testing, and also involving the end users in that validation as well. Much of the testing, we've developed our own testing tools, comparison test tools to support that phase, and make that as easy as possible to obviously protect the client's ongoing operational priorities as well as this project. And the final step is the deploy phase, where we deploy those changes into the new environment and monitor the 2 environments in a production in a production mode before switchover. So that's a high-level view of the approach to migration. Final slide from me is just around the project delivery methodology. So it's fairly generic, as you'd expect project delivery to be. It's covers the 3 main phases of a project, which is analyze, implement, and maximize. And within those phases, you'll see scope, design, preparation, migration, as we mentioned on the previous slide. And underneath those blue boxes there, you'll see some of the key deliverables that we produce throughout the project, or activities and deliverables. So those grey boxes are some of the key technical governance deliverables we have. So requirements document flowing through the design documents we produce under the design stage, and test strategy, through to evidence of the testing and the scripts that support that testing and the deployment plans. So we provide that full traceability through those deliverables of the requirements and the components we've implemented and tested to prove a quality product's delivered. So that's the role of me, to ensure these steps are taken and built into one migration plan. We've also got a selection of tasks here of some of the lower level activities we carry out in each of these phases as well. Throughout the migration project, we'd also be estimating. We've got 4 levels of estimate that we provide to a client, which we increase the tolerance of our estimates as we progress from scope through to migration, to obviously manage the risks associated and the assumptions that we make through the migration project as well, many of which need validation and managing. So I think that's probably all from me. So now I'm going to hand over to Pavel, who's going to take you through a bit more of a deep dive into the preparation stage of the project.
Yes, thank you, Ben. Yes, we'll talk about what we did in this project, and we'll talk about 2 of the main concerns during migration process and how we dealt with them. Yes, so these 2 great concerns are migration of SAS Code and migration of SAS datasets, of course. And as a reminder, now we're talking about the migration from SAS 9 to the SAS Hosted Cloud environment, SAS Viya. So all necessary SAS Code files and SAS datasets had to be moved to the cloud. But it was not enough to transfer all the necessary code files and datasets to a new platform. SAS code files and SAS datasets required some preparation before they could be used in SAS Viya. And we will talk about why this preparation was needed and how we did it and how it can be done. And it must be noted that in our case, it was very important to automate the whole process of preparing SAS code files and SAS datasets for several reasons. The first reason is the old platform of our client contained roughly 20,000 SAS code files and about 15,000 SAS datasets, so too many for manual processing. The second reason is the company continued using the old platform during the migration process, and users were constantly changing SAS code and datasets. So we needed a tool to update code files and datasets after we migrated them to a new platform. Another reason is during the migration process, new client-specific requirements for changes in code were arising. So we had to change code again and again according to new requirements. So let's briefly review different stages of SAS code and SAS dataset migration that we automated. Here you can see that first we used a Python script to scan SAS code files, analyze them, and determine the scope of changes necessary for migration to SAS Viya. Then we used a Python script to make these necessary changes. Change hard-coded paths in SAS programs to fit a new folder structure. Change encoding of text files, including SAS programs, to UTF-8. Adapt functions and call routines in SAS code for SAS Viya. Replace them with key equivalents. Increase format lengths of character variables in SAS programs to avoid truncation in SAS Viya environment. and make other changes in SAS files according to our client's needs. Then we also had to subset datasets which needed to be migrated from SAS 9, change encoding of datasets as well to UTF-8, and move, of course, datasets and the code files to the SAS Viya platform. And then compare SAS datasets with their migrated versions and validate them. So let's talk about some of these stages in more details now. And the next slide shows an example of this first stage when we analyzed all SAS code files and received a list of all necessary changes in all SAS code files. So this is just an example. And you can see what changes need to be done and how many changes. And this information was later used in testing and validation and planning of testing and validation. So we got an idea of the scope of these necessary changes. And the next slide shows an example of some of these changes. Replacement of hard-coded paths, and they came both from Linux and Windows style. So these replacements of paths in SAS code files were necessary to adapt paths to a new folder structure. And we used a Python script for this also. And the next slide shows other changes were made. For example, increasing of length and replacing some functions and call routines. And let me say why it was necessary. The reason is that the old platform had Latin-1 encoding, and UTF-8 is the only SAS session encoding supported in SAS Viya. So usage of non-ASCII characters when assuming values, when assigning values to a string variable can cause truncation. Also, for character variables, having non-ASCII characters, unexpected display issues may occur after the execution of the format statement. And the reason behind it, the length specified to SAS formats is byte-based, not character-based. That is, when you assign a SAS format to a character variable or string, the length is not equal to the number of characters you want to see. Instead, SAS interprets the format length as a number of bytes that the format will use when it displays the string. This is why the length of the format must be big enough to display all of the characters in a UTF-8 string. So length and format length of character variables in the code were increased to allow for multi-byte characters. And kind of the same reason we changed some functions and call routines. For example, length function, substring function. The reason is that traditional string functions assume the size of a character is 1 byte, and that a specified position is always the byte position. This is true, but true with SAS single byte character set session encoding. In SAS Viya UTF-8, UTF-8 is the only session available. And it is a multi-byte encoding, which means that characters can occupy more than 1 byte, up to 4 bytes. So traditional string functions may cause unexpected results when processing multi-byte characters. Therefore, some functions and coroutines were replaced with their K equivalents, so-called K functions or K coroutines, for correct processing of UTF-8 characters. Next slide. So many changes were done in the code to adapt code for SAS Viya to use in UTF-8 environment. And at the end of each program, we listed all the changes we made in the program. And this allowed users to have control over these changes and adjust code if it was necessary. So you can see it was the list of a sample of all changes made in the code. Okay, next slide. Migration of SAS datasets. To migrate datasets, we had several tasks for this. First, we had to subset datasets. SAS datasets were spread over Windows machines and Unix machines. So we had to bring them together in one place and migrate them to a new platform. And we used that, for that, we used the shell script and Python script. And then we had to change encoding of SAS datasets now, change encoding to UTF-8. It was necessary also because of this encoding problem. Truncation can occur when characters in the original encoding are converted to an encoding that requires more bytes to represent those same characters. For example, when characters that are encoded as Latin 1, it was our case, the original datasets were in Latin 1 encoded. And every character there is represented using 1 byte. And when these characters are transcoded to UTF-8, where some characters require 1, 2, or even 3 bytes, then truncation can occur if the character column is not wide enough. So we had to change encoding of all data sets using SAS script, and then move the all prepared data sets to Viya platform using SFTP. We zip them, then send them using SFTP, and we used Python script and shell script for that. And SAS Global team helped us to unzip those archives that we sent to a new platform and place necessary datasets and SAS code files to necessary folders. And the last task was to compare and validate datasets, migrated datasets, and we use SAS script for that. And now Oksana will continue.
Yeah, thanks, Pavel. So I'm going to shortly represent the regression testing methodology and validation process. In fact, the regression testing has 2 main purposes. The first one is to ensure the comprehensiveness of the changes done to the code, and another one is testing for the increased efficiency of the platform. Though the process might seem easy, but actually it requires more time than the technical migration itself, and the process is very time-consuming due to the involvement of different departments and teams and the complexity of the code which they use. So it's very important, as Ben has mentioned earlier, to plan and confirm the test strategy beforehand, even on the first steps of the migration project. And the main point in this test strategy is the testing coverage. As you can see on the slide, there are 3 main dimensions of the testing coverage. The first dimension is the SAS code changes. As Pavel demonstrated earlier, we have created a list of all the changes, all of the strings that had to be changed programmatically. And in the testing strategy, we simply have to make sure that all of the changes have been done and all of the programs can be run in an error-free way, and everything is covered. The second dimension is the test cycles. It's basically a big part of the test plan, which requires the involvement of a single team at a time to ensure that other teams are not distracted and that we are focusing on some selected range of programs at the current time. And the third dimension is the testing sequence, because it's really important to run as a first priority the programs which are used by several teams and departments. And as you can see, we have a document, one of the deliverables, which lists the number of instances of the changes in the code and the list of programs where those changes have been made. Concerning the validation of SAS code execution, there are also several steps to be conducted. The first step is to define the inputs for the test run, because usually the code includes some of the macro variables or paths that we need to change, and usually we need some help from the client to input those requirements. The second stage is to actually execute the process simultaneously in both environments, the target and native environments. And the reason why we are doing this simultaneously is because the databases and the data sets within them can be updated in live mode. And if we don't do it simultaneously, we can achieve different test results. And of course, we can't do the validation physically. So the third step is to check the program logs for errors after running and conduct the investigation. And I would say that at this stage, SAS hosting services will be one of the utmost, the team will be of the utmost importance, because some errors might arise from the environment and SAS Cloud. Sometimes the productiveness should be increased, and there can be some parameters of the SAS Cloud that need to be adjusted. And the last step is to actually check generated outputs. We're not yet talking about the automated comparison yet, but we just need to make sure that all of the outputs have been saved in the target location, or the emails have been safely sent. And again, as a result of this process, the test evidence document, a part of which is demonstrated on the slide, is being populated with different parameters. And this document is basically the main deliverable document of the testing stage. And it is being approved by both the testing team and the client team. And finally, I would like to say a couple of words about the dataset comparison, as Pavel has mentioned earlier. We have done it in the automated way. We have used a more customized version of the proc compare. It's not a simple proc compare, but the procedure which returns the report, which you can see on the slide, so that all of the output data sets are listed, and the types of controls are in the columns, so you can easily locate the source of the problem if there is a discrepancy between the data sets populated by the client and by the testing team, and take some actions. And I think that's it about the regression testing stage, and I hand over to Ben once again for the lessons learned.
Thanks, Oksana. Yeah, so yeah, like many projects, there's always some lessons to be learned. And for this particular project, the three key themes that we're just going to run through now, where we feel there were some lessons to be learned and some changes to be made in our future sort of migration projects. So the first one was around email configuration. So Oksana mentioned there that some of the programs deliver not only data outputs, but also some of the results from the programs are distributed via email. And yeah, what we would call out here is that you need to consider the detailed requirements around the use of email in detail as early as the project as possible. So when you're working with SAS Global to set the requirements for the infrastructure, and obviously that any system running in the cloud is going to be highly secure, and especially in a financial services or insurance environment, the protection of data is going to be one of the key priorities. So you need to consider in detail what the security requirements are going to be around distribution of data via email from that environment. So you have both the SAS Global Hosting security policies to consider, as well as the client organizations data security policies as well, and both will be striving for the same result, but they can be quite different in terms of how they are implemented. So you have to come up with a solution and a design which works for both parties, and still provides that security over the transfer of any data in or out of the environment. And often you have to seek approval from both the client and SAS data security and GDPR sort of working groups, and that can be quite time consuming in any organization, really going through those governance processes to expose secure connections between organizations. So that's one particular area that we had to deal with a bit later in the project. When we were testing email configuration, we hit some technical issues that needed to be addressed, which could have been addressed up front had we considered some of the details in there. The other area is around data transfer. So we had quite a large volume of data to transfer from on-prem environment to the cloud. And that was a full historic load of data. So we spent a lot of time actually in parallel with the migration phase of the code migration phase, in trialing and testing the different data transfer mechanisms to work out which was going to be the best solution. So yes, we were aware of quite a large volume of data, but what the other considerations were around where the data was being transferred from and to, the location of those data centers in the world, and where they were going to be backed up or replicated, and choosing the most optimal route of migrating that data and the best tools for doing it. So we invested quite a lot of time in this. That was mainly down to the volumes involved. We tried and tested many different solutions that were not giving us the performance we were looking for to support our plan. But eventually we did come up with one solution. So that's another area that we need to, again, address as quickly as possible, and set up some time in the early phases of the project to do some proof of concepts, because every client environment is going to be different, with different, again, security considerations to take into account. And finally, test strategy. I know we've spoken about this quite a bit. Is important in when you're doing your test strategy up front, that you can be as flexible as possible for the client, so that the client can manage their commitments, and you can obviously manage the delivery of the project in the most efficient way. So it's important to understand what the key priorities are in terms of processes to be tested, and obviously in this case regulatory ones were of utmost importance, and they were critical to gaining sign-off to switch to the new platform. So those processes were the ones that we tested as priority, and automating wherever possible. So we developed some bespoke tools on this particular project where we could automate the testing between the two environments, which saved us a considerable amount of time had we proceeded with a manual approach. So yeah, they're the three areas that I wanted to mention around lessons learned. And that takes us into our Q&A time. So is there anybody with any questions? I know we had one question in the chat from Annie. Okay, doesn't look like we've got anything. So I think that brings us to the end of the webinar. So thank you everybody for your time today. If you'd like any more information about migrating to SAS Viya, or SAS Global Hosting, or any other advice on working with SAS, we'd be happy to hear from you, and contact details on the screen. Thank you very much.